Great. Thanks so much, Mac. Appreciate you and Kettle Space hosting this event. Just as a means of background, I run the monthly Bootstrappers Breakfast, which we do host at Kettle Space when we were able to be in person in New York. My background is one of having built 8 companies over 25 years, and for the past 8 years running a coaching practice to help leaders of growth stage companies build out their organizations and their competencies. So with that in mind, enough about us and me, and really want to get down to the panel session. There's a lot of great topics that we want to discuss, so I'm going to try to pack it all into about a half-hour conversation, and then we'll take probably about 15 minutes of Q&A and finish with some final thoughts. If you can, throw questions into the chat. We have Ralph Thorne here. She'll be monitoring the chat and feeding questions to me and the panel as we're ready for them. So with that in mind, let me get started doing some introductions for the panel. So we have Dave Walsh of Mathison.
Hey everyone, and thanks Mike. Delighted to be here. I suppose I'll start with my background and personal story first, and then I'll just tell you a bit about Mathison. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Mathison, and I've been in HR tech for about 10 years. Launched a couple of early stage startups back in the UK and Ireland, where I'm from, both in the talent acquisition space and the HR space. So back in 2011, one of them was taking a picture of yourself and facially recognizing yourself and checking into work and geolocating yourself. So back then that was pretty futuristic at the time. And then I emigrated. I did a master's in marketing back in Ireland, and I emigrated to the United States about 6 years ago. And I just became fascinated with helping immigrants find jobs. I had 3 student visas at the time and wanted to help a number of people navigate that path with no US experience and not a US citizen. And I ended up helping hundreds of people. It kind of spiraled out of control at one point. And then from there, I wanted to help employers. So my focus became, how do we help employers cast a wider net? I worked in Indeed, the large job site, and then I also launched a company called Jobio, which was a Series A backed company. I launched their go-to-market strategy in New York City. At the same time, I launched an e-commerce watch business because I wanted to do something on the side, and I built that business up and sold it. But I met my co-founder Arthur about 2 years ago, and the two of us got really interested in building a business and a technology platform that does good in the world and helping the most underrepresented groups find employment. Bring that full circle, and we couldn't have imagined that in 2020 this became such an important topic for every single company out there. So we've been inundated with demand, and I find it to be such a privilege to be in a position that, as a startup, we can't find enough warm bodies to meet our demand. But simply how we help customers, and I'll just talk a little bit about the product itself, and then I'll hand it off to the other panel members. We help customers in 3 ways. Our customers are employers, any employer, and we charge a SaaS subscription fee to get access to our platform, and we help them source diverse talent. We help them reduce bias in their hiring practices and policies, and we help them educate their team through an online catalog of e-learning modules. So it's super excited to be here, happy to talk more about our business, but I think there's a lot of conversations around how to hire amazing team members, and I've been fortunate enough to be able to hire a great team, although I might be a little bit biased, but that's me in a nutshell.
Great, thanks so much, Dave. Next we have Vix Raitano of Agency 6B.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. My name is Vix Raitano. I'm the founder and CEO of Agency 6B. Agency 6B is a full-service creative digital agency, content production house, and advertising and marketing agency. We handle everything from your strategy to your content. We'll build you bite-sized content and buy your billboards. I come from a background, I built this company as a 6-figure company in 6 weeks. And in 2020, I grew the business by 843%. We went from a team of 4 to a team of 7. We are now a team of 10. And I'm actually hiring 2 more people for the month of April with some contracts that we just secured. So yay. I love being able to manage creative individuals. Everyone on my team is a multi-passionate creative. What that means is that we like a lot of things and are really good at a lot of things. I am not only an expert in strategy, content creation, and development, I'm also a media buyer. So every single service we offer, from content, web development, video production, social media, etc. You name it, I am an expert in and can execute on it. I've worked with the United Nations. I've consulted for Harry Winston. I've consulted for SoulCycle. Cohen's Fashion Optical was a client of ours. We've worked with some really incredible brands, but I really love helping small businesses as well, especially when those solopreneurs and entrepreneurs are creative, because I believe that it is about managing your creativity to succeed and not about shutting it off. I believe in the expert generalist, and I have proven time and time again over the last 5 years and 15 plus of my personal career that it's possible for them to thrive and for the companies they work with to truly reap the rewards. So I'm really excited for this conversation, as the main reason why I started my company was because I was abused in many jobs, and everyone who works for me has some sort of past job trauma. So if we can avoid that in the future, I've done a good job.
All right. Thank you, Vix. Appreciate that. And we have Dom Farnan of DotConnect. Dom,
Can you hear me?
now we can.
Okay, cool. It took a minute. Hi, everyone. My name is Dom Farnan. I'm the founder and CEO of DotConnect. A little bit about us. So we are not headhunters or recruiters, but we're a team of top talent advisors who help build businesses and hire talent with culture and reflect their values. So I was a solopreneur turned entrepreneur. I graduated high school early when I was 17 and followed my path, which ended up being recruiting. So I've been recruiting for about 20 years now. Founded my company on paper 10 years ago and then hired my team out in 2019. We went from 0 to 55 people globally today. My company's been bootstrapped, and we have zero outside funding, no debt, and we are profitable. So that's something I'm really proud of. But essentially, a couple of years ago, I decided to just go all in and teach a team of recruiters the DotConnect framework to successfully find talent for any type of role at any type of company. So we work with seed stage startups all the way through to enterprise innovation labs at a variety of different bigger brand companies as well. So that's kind of me in a nutshell.
Great. Thank you, Dom. So we have Dave, Vix, and Dom, and those you can just get a sense for, based on their backgrounds, the level of insight we're going to get. So let me kick it off. Dave and Dom, we know you're both in the recruiting space, but all three of the panelists today, all three of you have just built companies. You might have built companies in the past, but right now you've all grown a company. Tell us about the first hire that you made for your company, and a little bit about how you came to the decision that you needed to identify, that you needed to bring someone else in. You want to start, Dave?
Sure. Yeah, so when I started this business, I was fortunate enough to be connected in with a number of different angel investors, and one of them introduced me to my now co-founder, Arthur Woods. And the two of us, when I first got the call, I have a background in sales, and my board of director, one of my board members said, you need to meet Arthur. He's incredible. He'd be a great asset to your business. I was a solo entrepreneur at the time. And I said, well, I don't need another salesperson. That's me. But when I met Arthur, we had a call on a Friday. I remember this vividly. We had a call on a Friday at 10 a.m. for an hour. We had a video call at 3 p.m. for 2 hours. And I was in Ireland at the time visiting family for 2 weeks. And I said, Arthur, this has been really exciting, but I'll meet you when I'm back in New York in 2 weeks. And he said, well, I'm actually so interested that I'm going to fly to Ireland. I'll meet you there on Monday. So I was fortunate enough to start a mission-driven company where I was able to attract people from day one to be able to fly transatlantic over to Ireland. And maybe he came for the Guinness, I don't know. But the two of us sat there for about a week, mapping out the whole business plan and model. And it's been a journey. There's lots of amazing talent. We've been able to be attracted along the way, but that was the first hire I made. And he's been awesome. The two of us are business partners together, and we divide and conquer.
Excellent. Co-founder through your network. How about you, Vix?
So my first hire, I've actually done it a few times because there are different cycles to this business, but my very first hire was 6 months in. And what I did was I found somebody who matched my skill set but wasn't as advanced as I was. So she could take some of the things off of my plate and then could also learn. Because what I look for when I hire individuals is someone who has a creativity and a desire to continue learning. So for me, it was really about, these are the type of projects I have. These are things I hate, I don't want to do anymore. And how am I going to push them off my plate to give them to someone who is just as good at the things that I need them to do as I am. I run strategy for all of our clients, always have, probably always will. But I think that, I think that that's the piece that's important. My brain is our biggest piece of property, intellectual property or otherwise. It's our biggest asset. It always will be. And my team really has to be on board for the mindset piece. I will not have a team member who subscribes to scarcity mindset. I also am very aware of what they come from and what they bring, not only from a skill set, but from a personality. It's really important to me. I don't ever hire someone who doesn't, there's nothing I don't do well. Let me just put that, because I saw Liz's question. There's nothing I don't do well. I know it sounds really egocentric, but it's who I am. And it's why we're great and why our clients see the results they see. So I don't hire someone who doesn't do things that, like, there's no reason for that. I want someone who understands what I do and who has a gift, and that I can kind of push that gift forward. That's what my first hire really was, and why I've gone through so many cycles of doing it.
Great. Thank you, Vix. How about you, Dom?
Yeah, my first hire was a part-time sourcer and researcher who basically moonlit for me in 2018. I knew I needed to essentially buy back my own time. I had 9 clients that I was running, so those were my solopreneur days, and it was a lot. So by the end of 2018, I was super burnt out and decided it was time to go all in on the business and take my idea and my framework and scale that out by first pitching all of my clients, telling them I'm going to hire my team, train them up, and they're going to deliver how I've been delivering for the last 20 years. And that allowed me to flip those clients. So initially, like, I was really scared. I didn't think that they would say yes so easily. I thought they'd be like, oh, hell no, you're so amazing, I can only have you. But I told them, I was like, you know what? I've got a team now. I'm building my framework. They're going to deliver like me. And everyone was like, okay. So it was really super easy to flip all these clients. And then at the same time, hire a team of support on the back end. Initially, they weren't client facing, but they literally shadowed everything I did for at least a year before we started putting them in front of clients. Now we have documented processes for how we scale that out and how quickly we can ramp people within 90 days. But initially, it was just a part-time person behind the scenes to help me. Super.
So I've got a ton of questions based on that. I mean, I love stories, and we can keep peeling the layers, but we have we probably have about 20 entrepreneurs here who are presumably starting businesses, building businesses. Let me open it up to the three of you to see what you might suggest and how people identify that right role and that right time to bring someone on board.
Do it before you're drowning. Do it before you're drowning in work, because that stops you from being open to abundance. So do it when you feel like I'm ready for more. And then by making the commitment financially, time-wise, and otherwise, you're telling, I am very into the universe. You're telling the universe, like, you're ready for this. So I would say do it before you think you're ready.
Yeah. I think to add to that, Vix, one thing that really helped me was I read the book Clockwork by Shalawitz, and it really changed my perspective on business. So if you're at a point now where you're making money and you're thinking about hiring, then you should be hiring. It's likely that you're doing everything, deciding, delegating, all of that. So Clockwork gives you a really good framework to focus on how to dissect some of your roles. And to your point, Vix, earlier, like getting things off your plate. You will have to commit. It is a heavy lift training someone to do what you do, and knowing that it's not going to be done the way that you're doing it and all of that. Like, there's a lot of stuff that you've got to unpack there. But I think if you're at a point of thinking about hiring, that means you need to be hiring, that you're ready.
Yeah, I would add to that. It's funny. I think as entrepreneurs, you're kind of the type A personality where you just get stuff done. Like, it's just constant get stuff done. And one of the biggest things I learned pretty quickly is the ability to offload and delegate and identify where and how to delegate. As an individual contributor at the beginning, you can only do so much. And it's really important to then hire other individual contributors to fill and plug the gaps that you don't have. And then eventually start to hire people managers who can manage teams and functions. So I think the first and the couple of hires are really, really important. And I would look for mission alignment to begin with. Adaptability is what I would call it. You know, are they able to come in and adapt and evolve as needed? And then just like a work ethic, right? At the beginning, you just need people that are willing to do anything. You know, I think about my first job and that company I mentioned that I was taking a picture of myself and clocking in and out of work. My dad dropped me into town that day, and you don't drive into town in Dublin, but it was a special day. And I went in, I did the interview, I thought I did well. And on the way home, I got a call and I say, I got the job. I wasn't getting paid, nothing. I was so excited. I pulled over the car, I jumped up and down, and I said, I've got a job at a tech startup. And that's all I wanted and that's all I needed. So you definitely need people that are willing to go to bat for you. And it's going to be a business partnership, right? So you got to work together.
Yeah, I think that you mentioned a good point around values alignment. I think as a business owner who's going to make hires, you need to be really crystal clear on your personal values, and your personal and professional values can be enmeshed. They don't have to be separate. I used to think that there was like my professional values, and at the end of the day, they're the same to me. And, you know, our values, and one that's super important to me, is drive and curiosity. You have to be wanting and willing to learn everything and anything, especially in our world of consulting work. Like, we're only as valuable as how quickly we can scale and understand our client's business. If it takes someone from my team 6 months to get to know an industry, then we're already being, you know, caught up by other people who can scale and who have that intellectual curiosity and intellectual horsepower more quickly than us. So I think, you know, get clear on your values, write them out, and happy to share a template for going through a values exercise after this with you all to flush it out, and then look for people who are values aligned with you first before you start even talking about a job description and work.
So, you know, it's sounding like, you know, if I can extrapolate, you know, what we're hearing, it sounds like your first hire, or maybe your first bunch of hires, you know, since, you know, Vix, you were describing a mini-me, you know, and Dom, and you're talking about values alignment, and Dave, you're talking about, you know, someone who's adaptable and does everything. So we're really talking about, you know, just, it sounds like just versions of ourselves, just to multiply, you know, within the company.
Even just more people who have your same, like Dom said, with the values, but it's more people who believe what you believe in. Like at Agency 6B, no is not an answer. Like it is, you are literally not allowed to say no. We follow the improv methodology of yes and, like, okay, I acknowledge what you're saying, and this is how we're going to do it. Even if the after and is a no, because it can't be done or because it's out of scope or whatever, the way that we frame it is acknowledgement first. People just want to be heard. So if I have a team member who doesn't believe in that, I can't have that person on my team, because it does have a lot to do with concierge service. It also has a lot to do with a deeper understanding of what's a yes and a no for you and how you respond. So that was very important to me about the people that I brought on. And I think that has been what has been most helpful as we've grown. I mean, my entire business is word of mouth. So it's my name that they are licensing, and they need to respect that more than anything else. But again, I built this company to disrupt, because I think the way that most companies hire and pay and support their team members, it doesn't work. It doesn't work for creative people. So I do it in a totally different way. And my team, you know, my team calls our meetings the Vix Vortex. Like I bring them in and I bring them along, and they're supported, and they know that. They know that I have their back. Even if they mess up, they know that I've got their back. So I think that it is this intense trust. And that's why you look for a mini-me, or that's why you look for someone with mindset values. That's why you look for someone who's adaptable, because you don't want someone who trusted before and was burned to assume that you're going to be the same way.
And I would add to that, and I would just add, like Dom, you mentioned curiosity, right? So right now, I think it's at the very beginning, it's ambitious. You want ambitious people. You want people that are going to come out and really want to excel. And I think ambition is really important at the beginning. For the first couple of hires, you know, like I think back when I was 19, I was sitting with my dad in a coffee shop, and he asked me what I wanted to do as I was coming out of college. I said, I want to own a tech company by 25. And he started laughing at me. And then when I was 27, I owned a tech company. I came back to him and said, I'm 2 years late. And, from there at an early age, I was supported by my family in thinking that you can do anything. So I think it's really important to find people that are like-minded and ambitious. And then as my business has evolved, I don't know what you would say about this, Vix or Dom, but it's all about self-awareness for me at the moment. Like, are they self-aware? Are they, and I would ask questions like, tell me a time that you were wrong and why. Tell me a time you disagreed with your manager. What was the outcome? And you start to realize that, there's so many people out there that can plug into your business and do a job, but they're not going to last if they're not self-aware. So that's something I would definitely look for as well.
Yeah, I think right now we're in a different phase of our growth, being at 55, although a lot of those people have just joined in the last 3 months. Last year, I was a team of 15 during the whole pandemic. The entire year, we were probably what felt like the only recruiting company that had work and were hiring. It was a pretty rough year, but we weathered the storm, and now we're at 55. And the place where I'm at as a leader is about empowering my people leaders. So I have 6 people who report into me, and they each manage a pod and a vertical. And so I think a lot about what can I do to empower them, and then also create a culture of trust and accountability. And then lastly, just thinking through like decision making that doesn't start and end with me. Now I've taken that and gotten myself out of all the nitty gritty day to day where everything used to run through me. 20 people we just hired, I didn't interview. And I'm fully okay with that because I know that my team totally understands and aligns with our values and what we're doing. And that has been the most freeing thing, going from a solopreneur to leading this team to now being in a business where I can delegate and trust and empower my people to make the right decisions. And that's where you can really scale, scale your process, scale your system, scale your team, scale yourself.
Do you guys think it matters or whether you bring on your first team members as contractors versus employees?
I don't think it matters. My vision is for us to have hubs of contractors. So, I see us all as individuals because I want to highlight their creative brand. So it's a different mindset. I have W-2 employees and I have contractors. I prefer them as contractors, and my people prefer to work that way. Dom, I know you're aligned in that too. But I think it's really just a tax question as opposed to a people question. I think that's what it is.
I'm glad you asked that. I saw that on our list. I wanted to talk about that because a lot of my workforce are contractors, and I have always been a contractor. I've been an employee, I think, at one place maybe 20 years ago, but I've had an entire year of consulting, 20 years of consulting work. And to me, there's a false sense of security for people who want the W-2 or end up working at one place forever, like their company people. There's nothing wrong with that, but I've never felt more secure and in control of my own destiny being a consultant and a contractor and a freelancer. So to me, like, I actually don't care at all. If someone wants to be a W-2, cool, like I'm fine with that. But if they want to stay freelance, that's cool too. Like, to me, there's not one that's better than the other.
I would agree with that. And I would just add, like, it's really important to not view them as team members. It doesn't matter if they're a contractor or full-time. It doesn't matter. In fact, I was a contractor of my own business while employing 10 people at one time, which is kind of crazy. So I would agree with everything that both Dom and Vix has said. It doesn't matter. At the beginning, it's just getting people in the door. And if they're a contractor or not, I don't think it should make any difference. Yeah.
Well, I know this is a difficult question to answer since we're still in the, within the span of a pandemic, but remote versus local building, especially your earliest team members. Have you guys built local teams, remote teams? What do you guys see happening? The ones of you who are recruiting, what do you see happening with your clients?
Yeah, my team's distributed first. So everyone I've hired is not located in central New Jersey like me. I do have a few people that were close to me that last year before the pandemic hit were coming to my office a couple days a week, but again, they wanted to be there. They liked being around me and getting that interaction. Now we're fully distributed first and global in that regard. I think a lot of my clients have really been opened up to hiring all over the world as well. But I also think that there's an important factor, like talent is everywhere, but not all talent is everywhere. So like there are places where you cannot literally find a back-end engineer for a SaaS company in wherever random place in Antarctica or whatever. You know what I mean? Like there's some things that you need to balance when you're thinking about that. I used to have a client of ours who was like, we hire everywhere. And I'm like, but you really only hire like in Russia and like 2 other places. So you don't hire everywhere. You hire places outside of the US that you think are everywhere, but it's only these 4 countries. So there's that misnomer and call out when you think about hiring everywhere. Like know that talent can exist, but it's not always going to be where you think it is.
We just opened our first physical HQ in December because everyone's closing offices. So I'm going to do the weird thing and open up a physical space. And we're actually in the middle of a build out for a space double the size because we outgrew it already. So come June 1, we're in a whole new space. So now my team members work 3 days in the office, most of them between 2 and 3 days in the office, and then remote the rest. I feel that remote is fine. That was my big argument, was that I should be able to trust you. You're an adult. You should be able to work on your time in your space. I do think though, myself included, with the pandemic, I have found that there are a lot of, like, I have a very strong mental capacity, and I think most entrepreneurs do. We have this like intensity inside that we can access. But with the pandemic, like pandemic brain is real. So I think that when it comes to remote, you have to set up checks for them. We use a lot of different tools through Slack, and we have some automations for emails and, you know, all of that kind of stuff. Like technology is your friend, use it. And for remote workers, setting them up for success instead of assuming that they're going to fail because they're remote, I think is key.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm a little biased in this. I've worked remotely for like 3 years now. And, you know, when we started our business, we were remote first. So we focused on creating a company culture from a remote position at the very beginning. So we were kind of ahead of the game in some regards. And I view it as there's pros and cons, right? Huge pros and cons. And I just view it as more efficient working remotely. But for example, when we start our Monday meetings, we're asking people about how their weekends went. And we start with checking in with people before diving right into work. One of the biggest things about Zoom fatigue is you're just always talking about what needs to get done. And it's really important to take the time to like ask people how they're feeling and how they're turning up and what they got done. We did a controversial thing recently, which kind of happens sporadically, but a new team member joined and we asked them to guess people's height because they had never seen it in person. And it was great, but it was awkward because it's like, you can't guess people's height. It's just going to insult people. So, you know, there's a way of doing things where you create a remote environment and it works. And I think it's important. And then, you know, I'll briefly pause by just saying, like, when you're interviewing for people that are going to work remote, it's really important to look for, have they done it in the past? Have they worked? An example of a question I would ask is, tell me how you schedule your day, right? Like, tell me, have you worked? What is the specific thing that you've done and you've accomplished by yourself? And when you start to realize, you'll see people that thrive in environments that are surrounded by people on a day-to-day basis. And there's people that can do the job by themselves and sit at a desk for 10 hours a day. And you know, uncovering those nuances and those people is important. And it's all about interview technique for me, at least.
And Dave, go ahead, Dom.
I think that's so important that you call that out, Dave, because one of my early hires in 2019 wanted to work from home. So she joined our team, and then 6 months in, after we felt like we had invested a lot of time, effort, energy, training, setting her up for success, she hated working from home. She wanted to go back to an office. She went back to her old job before the one she quit to join us. She went back there because it was at an office. And that was a learning for us. So now we really flush that out in our interview process, and we make sure that these people really understand, because it is a brain drain and you do get sucked into where you are working 10, 12, 14, 16 hours a day. So you have to kind of frame that in your conversations with people, but also not expect that just because they're at home, they're working infinity hours because you're the big boss or whatever. Like, people still have boundaries and are allowed to have boundaries. That was a big learning for me. Like, before it was like, no, nobody's online at midnight, I'm still working, what the hell? Well, that changes. Like, once you realize that that's not okay, and you do your own inner work like I've been doing, then your perspective will shift on that, and you just flesh that out in your interview process.
And Dom, like one of the things I realize is working styles, right? Like if you create the right type of company culture that's working remotely, you don't need everyone to be on at all times. So I try to lead by example by putting in my calendar times I'm going to be off, like going for a walk, going for a run. Maybe I don't go for a run too often. I probably should do that more. But I put in my block and I say and encourage people to take a little bit of time off from time to time throughout their day. And then it's really important to understand working styles. And then and the other thing I had to stop myself doing, because I work in the Pacific time and we have a lot of people on East Coast time, is sending late night emails. Like everything after 3 p.m. and from my mind is unacceptable. So I start to schedule emails and schedule to send them to go in the next day. Because what happens in a remote environment, everyone always feels on. They need to be on. And it's really important to give people a space, because once they recharge and come back and they appreciate the space, you get a better output.
Yeah, I think scheduling emails is key, and I use Send It Later on Slack, and that's like Sundays I'm prepping for my week, and I'm like scheduling all my Slacks to hit on Monday. Sometimes I'll text people and be like, hey, you're gonna get 25 Slacks on Monday morning. Like, don't think I'm just sitting there thinking about you all Monday morning, but like these are scheduled, FYI. But yeah, there's things that you can do that will help to alleviate that and give people some breathing room.
I'm laughing, Dom, because I didn't even know that was a tool. I'm gonna have to ping you afterwards to know.
We'll try to collect all the resources and share them in a follow-up email, like the book you mentioned earlier, Dom. We have a now I'm watching the clock here because I think that's what I'm paid to do, right? But there's so much more we want to talk about. So maybe I'm gonna have to pare it down. But let's talk a little bit about the how. We have, we talked a little bit about the what, right? When are we going to hire? What, who are we going to hire? But how do we go and find this talent? Like how are you identifying whether they're clients of yours who you're helping fill positions or for your own the roles in your own companies? What are some tips that you could offer the entrepreneurs to locate talent that may want to work for them?
Yeah, for us, we come up with a sourcing plan, and you can come up with a sourcing plan for your own roles. But first, start with your network. Leverage your professional network, but also your personal network. My first hires were friends turned people who now work with me, and really like team, work family. Leveraging your network. I also use a lot of Slack communities. That's how I met Vix and connected with her. Was on Ladies Get Paid Slack. One of the guys I hired on my team, I found him on Blacks in Technology on Slack. There's a lot of Slack communities that if you're not a member of, but you're looking for people, go find them there. Slack's like the new age AOL in some regard, where you can just find communities and chat with people about interesting things and work and whatever. So I would encourage you to use that. Networking, associations, communities, events like this, see who's on here, see who's doing what, cross share. I did a lot of workshops last year through Akimbo and Alt MBA and all of that, and have networked with people there, have given them business, have offered my business to them. So those are some low-hanging fruit avenues of sourcing that I would recommend.
Dave or Vix, anything to add? And how do you, Dave? I know you also say networking through an prospective angel investor. What are some of the other channels that you guys have discovered talent for the company?
Yeah, honestly, there's no silver bullet. Like it's really hard to find the right people, and it takes time. Like you got to budget time, because what I try to do is get as many people in the top end of the funnel, put them through the same process, and then assess and compare and contrast. And like that takes a lot of people. And one of the things I had to do at the beginning was stop scheduling meetings with people that might be a good fit, right? Because I ended up in meetings that, instantly I knew they weren't right for the business at the time. So in terms of like I do a lot of sourcing myself, right? I'll post jobs, I'll rely on referrals a lot. Like referrals are always really nice. And then as Dom said, like your network, right? Like I'll send out investor reports, and my biggest ask is invite me and introduce me to great talent. So there's no simple answer, and you have to do a lot. You have to do a lot.
I think one thing I've always learned, having been recruiting since I got hand-delivered paper resumes and fax resumes, like that was way back in the day when we didn't have email and LinkedIn and Monster and all those fun things. you never know where your next hire is going to come from. So don't get hooked on what the cool thing is today. Today I'm using Slack. That's been yielding me good results, but tomorrow there might be a new Slack or a new thing or another new thing to find talent. So I think we subscribe to, doing all of the things: posting, sourcing, networking, associations, communities, events, all of the things. You can't just rely on the one thing. And LinkedIn is not going to help you all of the time. The thing with LinkedIn, you can get sucked down a rabbit hole and spend a lot of time prospecting and emailing people that don't want to hear from you, that are not in the job market and don't give a shit about what you have to sell them or talk about an opportunity. So there's other alternatives, like Hired is a good platform, or Vettery is a good platform for talent that is ready to be hired now. They want to be found out. They want to interview. Similarly, there's platforms for freelance like Upwork. There's another one called Brain Trust that I think is amazing, that curates, talent marketplaces for a lot of different types of roles. So there's a lot of different things, but there's not just one thing that is going to work for all of the jobs and all of the companies.
It's funny you mentioned Brain Trust. I was part of their beta because I know one of their co-founders. I agree. I mean, everybody I hire, I know. So I had this thing because when I started working, I was very young and I was still working in college when I was working at This Old House magazine, already in my industry, getting paid while I was getting my degree. So I said that I was building a team as I was growing. Like, I knew I was going to have a company. I didn't think it would be at 27 that I would start the company. I thought it would be in my 40s. But here we are, almost 33, and have quite the success story. I carry people with me and I monitor their progress. So I watch where they're going, what they're doing, what they're working on. I also have this big thing called the State of the VIX. And I recommend that people do the state of their union so that I know if they're like interested in side work or full-time work or whatever. And anybody that I see that's really doing something interesting, I'll ask them like, hey, you ever think about working with us? Or hey, you ever think about like coming on to do this project? I collect people and I really like to make sure that I have a good roster of background. I actually found most of my people through Soul Cycle classes because that's the type of vibe that I go for. So that's where my humans are from. Our VA, Dom and I share a VA, and I met her through my podcast. I was interviewing her and I just really liked her style and her attitude and the way she conducted herself. And, I was like, yeah, I'm on it. So I've recommended her to a lot of friends and she still works with us. And it's great.
Vix, you made me think of another channel, user-generated content. So if you all have websites, post a blog or post something with your bio that you write, that's your own story, and share that with people. People will find you. We have a few jobs posted on my website, and now people are applying to those jobs because they're seeing me at something like this, or they're following me or someone on our team. So you will know that secretly out there, people who are your people find you and want to be a part of your thing, and they'll seek you out.
And I noticed you guys mentioned you share a VA, and there was a question in the chat room I noticed about whether you guys think VAs are a good idea. So it certainly sounds like there's an endorsement there.
Well, I have one caveat to that because I do want to address that. I think VAs are great to do what VAs do. Do not hire a VA to be your advertising agency. Do not hire a VA to be your sourcer. Do not hire a VA to be like this big thing, because while some of them say they can do it, that's how, people call me Vix because I got the fix, and I'm usually cleaning up messes of people who are like, oh yeah, we did that before. I'm like, you didn't do it with an expert. You did it with someone who has some knowledge of it, but doesn't do it on a daily basis. So VAs are great at what they do. They are meant to assist and they are experts. Like Sarah is a calendar ninja. Truly, like I don't know any other word for it. If you tell her you need time, like I call her my bulldog because everybody calls me their bulldog, and we both have bulldogs. I have a French bulldog, she's got an English one. So that's like, she's the block, and that's what I needed. She's somebody who's gonna protect me. So, I think that's important. You have to know what you're hiring them for.
And I know this might be a little bit off topic, but what you said is Vix has the fix is so funny because I view myself in the role as a CEO and founder as like the fixer. The thing that the person that comes in understands the situation, listens to everyone's perspective, and problem solves as quickly as possible. Like that is the goal, and move quickly. So it's just so funny that you said, I'm gonna have to coin my own one of them because that's That's exactly how I feel in my job.
Do good, Dave. I mean, we can workshop it.
Yeah.
Think
No
the
work.
same.
As a coach, I'm gonna resist my temptation to talk about how to combat being a fixer.
Works for me.
So there's like 3 or 4 areas we wanted to talk about, but I kind of like save one of them for the end, and maybe take a couple questions from the attendees, because I don't want to I want this to be as participative as possible. One of the questions, this is a good one, is about how do you decide how much to pay, right? I get it, right? There is competitive market surveys, and and we have to offer people attractive compensation packages in order to win them. But when you're small, when you're first starting out and you've got limitations, how do you figure out what the right what the right compensation is and get someone to accept it?
I have another book for you. Profit First, Mike Shalawitz. Again, he wrote Profit First and he wrote Clockwork. I read both of them. Profit First is good because he talks about 5 different buckets and how you budget. And you always take profit first from the business and then you break it down. That's a really helpful framework to figure out if you're ready to pay an employee and what you should be paying them. There's a lot of, like, to your point, there's a lot of things out there that you can Google and find. But I also think Vix and I collaborate on this as well. Like, I look at her template for how she pays her team project-wise. I look at mine, because when I started my business, I wasn't thinking I was starting a company. I was like, oh, we have a few projects. Cool, I have some people helping me. Like, it wasn't supposed to be what it is now. And now I'm like, oh, wait a second, I've got a business to run. Oh, wait a second, we're not making money on that project. Oh, wait a second, I'm starting to actually look through things and realize how low my margins are. And so now we're changing our pricing structure and all of that. But I think when you're initially starting out, you got to figure out what you need to get out of it, and then what you can afford to pay someone as a baseline.
I had intuitively come up with all that pricing, and I was so I read this book called Worthy by Nancy Levin. That one helped me because it's about money mindset, and that was a big thing for me. My parents are entrepreneurs. My mother's been a lawyer for 35 years, has had 3 employees on a rotating basis, like full-time with benefits, the whole 9, just a small law firm, law practice. So I had intuitively created these pricings, and I was like, okay, this is going to be fine. But I was like, I don't want to do the math. I'm not the math girl. And then I finally, at the end of last year, when we finally opened the space, I said, no, I am the math girl. I don't need an MBA. I don't need somebody else to tell me what I need to do. And I went through and I have this beautiful color-coded document. I mean, I make budgets all the time for someone else's money, right? For media buying. So when I went through, we had profit on every single project, on every single account. So I was proud of myself in that. But I think if I could go back and give myself advice, I would do that at the beginning. I would say, okay, this is what the bare minimum is, and this is what we should be at. And how do we track to that? And in terms of how I pay my people, Dom and I talk about this all the time, literally. Like, I incentivize everybody with commission. I mean, one of my team members is making like a lot of money this year because of the projects that they brought in. So, that helps them. I also always incentivize with credit. So like, one of my team members was really excited because they were going to get to be talent in a commercial that was going to be on GMA, because she's also an opera singer in addition to being a content producer for us. So she got some credits. So I look at my people they're creative. I see what they need. And then I offer them something about, in those lines. Another team member, we pay them well, but I pay for all their Adobe apps. I pay for their Final Cut. I pay for, those things. So it's benefits too. I mean, obviously, I'm not in a place yet where we can offer health benefits. I'm hoping in the next 6 months that will be something for 2022. But that's what I look at. I look at the whole package. What am I giving you? I mean, I'm training them all. They get access to all my webinars. We're talking 15 years of experience. Also, I'll pull whatever strings I can for them, and they know that.
What you said towards, sorry, Dom, what you said towards the end there about like giving them other things and not just compensation, I think that comes back to what you're looking for is a missionary, not a mercenary. You're looking for people to come in, and you're saying, look, whenever you come in, you're going to come in at a certain level, and in a startup, you're going to learn so many things. And I need to understand what your ambition is, what you want to do, where you gravitate towards, so I can help you along in your career. But the compensation, everyone at our company takes a huge hit on base and compensation. They're there to learn. So as long as you set those expectations with the right people, it's actually a really good way of weeding out the wrong intent people, by saying, here's what I'll offer you, and here's what you're not getting, and here's what you're going to get over time. And then making commitments to them that if they hit their goals and hit their objectives over time, you're going to stick to your word and get them compensated well. That's a really good way of weeding out the wrong type of people at an early stage startup.
I think too, like, I'm motivated by money, not gonna lie, but a lot of people are not. So it took me, that was a big growth for me in 2020, to be perfectly honest. Like, I took that time when we were in lockdown while I was working on stuff. That was another thing I worked on, where I was like, okay, so they're not motivated by the same thing I'm motivated by, and that's okay. But now I have to figure out, what they're motivated by. Everybody wants credit. Every creative wants credit for their work, but like, it was just a very interesting learning process for me. I think entrepreneurs are driven by money for the most part. I mean, we're driven by growth, by numbers, by projections, by, P&Ls, but that's not everybody. So sometimes it's really about taking the step back and saying, okay, what does this person need to be motivated by to enhance my company?
Yeah, one thing I can add as a perk, and as far as compensation for us, like, I pay my team at the top of the market, because I want to land the right talent. And so I'm willing now at a place to have a less profit and margin and pay for the talent. But at the same time, I also give them a perk of aligning with our value of creativity and, learning, for paying for some of them to go through different learning experiences. I paid for one of my other team members to go through Alt MBA because I went through it and was life changed after that. I pay for them to go through other accelerators. I'll pay for half of some kind of learning thing for them that they're interested in, even if it has nothing to do with recruiting. And they seem to really like that. And it's not just, I'm not giving you a check for $5,000. I'm paying for half of whatever the school thing is that you want to go do, or whatever the accelerator is. And they love that.
Yeah. Last thought on this, Mike, and then I'll hand it back to you, is like, it's all about transparency and like directness for me. Like, set the expectations with them, explain it to them. Don't make promises you're not going to be able to deliver on. Like, that's the worst thing you can possibly do. When you're hiring people, set their expectations of what it is and what it isn't, and what you're going to get and what you're not going to get. And then stay true to your word over time. If they're a top performer, they'll get paid well.
Great. Thank you. We have a handful of other questions that are really good, but we only have about time for one more, and I kind of want to, I want to ask this one because 2020 wasn't just the year of the pandemic. 2020 was the year of a lot of other kinds of social awakenings. And so, equity and access is something that we've talked about a lot. And I want to hear a little bit. And I know to each of you guys, it's very important in your company. So I'd love for you to share your, what your philosophies are and what you've done in your organizations around DEI and making sure that we had that there was access and equity.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dom. You could go first.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I just had a session with my team and we talked about this because there's still the term floating around out there, culture fit, and really the new age term and the modern day people teams and HR and recruiting teams. We're not talking about culture fit anymore. We're talking about culture add, and that's how you create diverse teams. And diverse teams drive innovation, not just how people look diverse wise, but neurodiverse. Vix, I know you're going to talk about that. And just diversity of thought. So when we look at our new hires and who we want to pull into our organization, we look for who's going to add to our culture, not what already fits in our culture. We already have all of that, but we think about the additive skills and experiences that are going to bring a fresh pair of eyes. We literally just experienced this on my leadership team. I had initially 3 leaders that I'd call my OGs that were my first couple of hires. And then I brought 2 more into the fold. And so we had a team of 5 and then finally a team of 6. But the 2 that we brought in were just so different than the OGs. And that has made the best impact on our leadership conversations and the ability to drive the business forward. I mean, look what's happened in the last 2 months. We've hired 20 other people just from having all 6 of these brains in the same conversation once a week and now able to lead our people. So I think that, culture add and diversity of thought is just so important. And that's how we lead our team. And then also what we recommend to our clients.
Yeah, 40 to 60%, well, let's say 60% of our clients are in one or more marginalized communities. We use pronouns in our emails. We are creating a space where people are comfortable. All of my team members are neurodiverse. I tend to attract neurodiverse people. My brother didn't speak till he was 5, so I spoke for him. He has apraxia, dyslexia, dysmorphia, a whole bunch of different ways of processing that are different. And I have always been someone who navigates that well. I have hyperproductivity, and I am a high functioning, I manage my anxiety very well. I'm very transparent with my team about what I deal with. Oftentimes in our meetings, I'll say my therapist said, or things like that. Like I try to normalize that too. And I hire as many team members that have a different experience than I do and look differently than I do as possible. But I don't believe in like seeking that out, because I think that's worse. I think it's more about like creating a culture where people feel comfortable and then just letting it naturally happen. I also am very cognizant. We are a majority female identifying team. And I'm very cognizant of how people talk to my team. So I've had clients who say honey and sweetie and things that just like I roll off because I just deal with it. But if my team is uncomfortable, I move them to another project, or I address it with the client. Very uncomfortable, obviously. But I am always willing to do my part for them. And then we have that conversation about, okay, this is how we handle this, or this is how we handle that, or here's how you can be empowered to say that. So, I have mentored young women of color my entire career, even when I was not in my career. So that's very important to me. And I give free sessions to business owners who are BIM, POC, and LGBTQ, 10 free sessions a month for strategy. So diversity and access is important to me, and it is important to my team. So I try to push that as much as we can.
As you can probably imagine, I have so many thoughts on this, and we need another whole hour to go to talk through all of this. So, briefly from my perspective, I think the first thing to note is it's really about quality over diversity, right? If you're looking for additive team members, you want people that are going to be extremely good team members. And we have companies that come to us for all the wrong reasons, right? We're a diversity-focused business that helps companies build more inclusive teams, essentially. And they come to us for the wrong reasons, and we have to turn them away, right? They're coming in saying, I need to, so it's about educating a lot of employers around how to approach this in the right way. And for me, it's quality over diversity. And then starting with, if you're building your team from beginning, it gets a hell of a lot easier if you focus on this at the beginning. And like my rule of thumb is, start early, be intentional, and don't compromise. It's important to find additive team members. It's important to build an inclusive culture. So I have so many more thoughts on the matter, but we're probably running out of time. So I don't know. I'll hand it back to you, Mike, if you want to follow up with any other questions.
We have got 3 minutes left, so I am going to say that we want to be respectful of people's time. We only have till 1. I think just let me just go around and just any one, if you can give this room full of entrepreneurs one piece of advice, related to the topics that we discussed today, what would it be? Like, what's the one takeaway that you'd like people to have from what you shared today?
Trust yourself. You know what's best for your team and your company. Trust yourself.
And on that same vein, my thing is don't give up. The road is extremely bumpy, and you get, the analogy I use is you're at the bottom of a mountain, you've got to climb, and you got to keep climbing. And then when you climb to that top next, base camp 1, you got to keep going again. And there's just so many times that I see people give up for whatever reason. And my big thing is you got to be tenacious, and you just don't give up.
Yeah, my thing was going to be keep going. Just keep going. Trust yourself. Don't give up. Keep going. You've got it.
All right.
And Mike, finally, I would say, I've failed way more times than I've been successful. You're going to fail, and it's important to recognize that. It's not a failure of yourself if it doesn't work out. You've learned an incredible amount through that failure, and picking yourself back up again and doing it again is more important than anything.
And
Okay.
it's not going to look the way you think it's going to look. Like, I live in New Jersey. I grew up in New York, and I moved my whole self and my company to Hoboken, New Jersey. And now I signed a 5-year lease in Jersey City. If you had told me that 3 years ago, I would have laughed in your face. Like, my friends literally are like, who are you? I'm like, it works. Like, it's going to look different. So be attached to the end result, the end goal, the end feeling, not even like the end picture, but like the end feeling rather than the road or what it looks like when you're there.
The journey.
Great.
Not to hate on New Jersey, but a little bit.
New Jersey has great views of the Manhattan skyline.
Yes, it does.
So look, I mean, this is, we can go on for hours more. This has been fantastic. Vix, Agency 6B, Dom of DotConnect, and Dave of Mathison. You guys were amazing. So I want to thank you for taking the time and sharing all your thoughts. We will, like, not only will collect links, we'll share websites and contact information so that you guys can connect. And with that, let me turn it back over to Mac for some, closing words from Kettle Space. But I just want to thank all the panelists and thank everybody for coming in. And